The song wasn't meant for my ears. And yet, there it was playing through the studio monitors at 2 a.m., a confession wrapped in chords and trembling lyrics that carried my name like a wound. I froze in the doorway, staring at the soundboard glowing in the dark. I'd only come back because I'd forgotten my notebook, but instead, I found that. His voice raw, aching, too close to breaking poured out of the speakers. Every word burned through me like fire. The engineer, Alex, didn't see me at first. He was hunched forward, his cap pulled low, head tilted like he was praying the song would swallow him whole. I'd never seen him like that before, unguarded, drowning in something he clearly hadn't meant to share. When the song ended, silence hit harder than any applause. And that was when his head snapped up. His blue eyes locked on me, and in an instant he paled, like I had walked in on him naked, like the world might collapse if I said anything. He didn't say a word, just slammed the spacebar, shut down the track, and bolted past me before I could move. And since that night, Alex hasn't said more than 3 words to me. I'm not stupid. I know what that song was. Every line was about May, about the way I tap my pen against the console when I'm nervous, about the way my laugh cracks when I'm too tired, about the fact that he sees me, really sees me. But if Alex thinks he can hide behind silence, he doesn't know me as well as he thinks. The first time we met, I thought he hated me. It was the start of summer in Brooklyn, sticky and hot, the kind of heat that makes sweat cling like a second skin. I was a newcomer to the studio, just another singer-songwriter trying to make something real in a city that chews people up. Alex was already there, adjusting cables like a surgeon, headphones clamped over one ear, jaw tight. I remember making some dumb joke about how many knobs the soundboard had, asking if he actually knew what half of them did. He didn't even crack a smile, just gave me this sharp look that said, "I don't have time for your nonsense." But when I finally got into the booth and started singing, I caught him watching me through the glass. Not like a critic, not like a stranger, more like he was listening with his whole chest. Even then, I should have known. Now, weeks after the song, I can't stop thinking about it. About him. I try to corner him in the break room, but he slips out with a muttered excuse. I text him about session times, and he replies with single words. I laugh at something stupid in the studio, and he keeps his gaze locked on the levels, pretending he didn't hear me. It hurts. And I hate that it hurts, because the song God, that song told me everything. And his silence tells me the rest. He doesn't want me to know. But I do. The night I finally snap, the city is drowning in rain. We've been recording for hours, just the 2 of us, the rest of the band gone. My throat is raw, the strings on my guitar are digging into my fingers, and Alex hasn't looked at me once. When I play the final note, I don't let it fade. I slam my hand against the strings, killing the sound. Are you seriously going to keep pretending I didn't hear it? My voice cracks, but I don't care. Alex stiffens at the console. His hands hover over the sliders, trembling just enough for me to notice. I don't know what you're talking about, he mutters, his voice rough. Yes, you do. I step closer, my chest tight. That song. The one you wrote. The one about me. His head snaps up, eyes flashing with panic. It wasn't, he cuts himself off, swallowing hard. It wasn't meant for you to hear. Too late. My heart is pounding so hard I can feel it in my throat. You can't put something like that into the world and then expect me to pretend it doesn't exist. Alex stands abruptly, pushing back his chair so hard it hits the wall. For the first time, he's not hiding behind his cap, his headphones, or his silence. He looks wrecked. Do you have any idea what you're doing to me? His voice cracks, sharp with anguish. You walk in here, he gestures at me, helpless, like the words won't come. And you don't even see it. Don't even see me. The room tilts. Alex. My voice is barely a whisper. I see you. His breath hitches. For a second, I think he might break. But then he shakes his head, like the thought is too dangerous to hold on to. No. You only see the music. You only see what you want. And before I can stop him, he's gone again, storming out into the rain, leaving me standing there with the echo of his confession and the ghost of his song still ringing in my chest. I should let it go. I should focus on my career, my deadlines, the songs that are supposed to matter. But all I can think about is the one song I was never meant to hear. And the boy who wrote it. The rain had turned Brooklyn into a blur of neon reflections, streaks of light bending on slick pavement. I left the studio that night with my guitar case heavy in my hand and something heavier inside my chest. Alex was nowhere in sight. He'd disappeared into the storm like the city had swallowed him whole. And maybe it had. The truth is, I couldn't stop shaking, not from the cold, not from the rain soaking through my jacket, but from the way he'd looked at me, like I was the center of his gravity. Like loving me was the most dangerous thing he'd ever done. And then he walked away. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him at the console, his hands trembling, his voice breaking on words he didn't mean to say out loud. Do you have any idea what you're doing to me? Yes, Alex. I think I do now. The next morning, the studio smelled like stale coffee and dust. The hum of the fluorescent lights above seemed louder than usual, like the universe itself wanted to mock me for how little sleep I'd had. Alex wasn't there. His chair at the console was empty, headphones coiled neatly on the desk, like he hadn't even been in the building since the night before. I asked around. The receptionist said he'd called in sick. The drummer mentioned something about him needing space. Space. Like we were two stars on a collision course and the only way to survive was to push me light years away. But I couldn't stay away. Not when I knew the truth. Not when I'd heard the truth. By the third day, I couldn't take it anymore. I showed up at his apartment, soaked from the drizzle, my guitar strapped across my back like a shield. I didn't even know what I was going to say until I was pounding on his door, praying he would answer. When the lock finally clicked, Alex opened the door only halfway. His cap was gone, his blonde hair sticking up in wild tufts, eyes red like he hadn't slept either. The sight of him made my chest ache. What are you doing here? His voice was hoarse, like he hadn't spoken in days. I came to talk. There's nothing to talk about. He tried to close the door, but I wedged my foot in before it could slam. Don't do that. Don't shut me out. My voice cracked, and I hated how desperate it sounded. Alex stared at me for a long time. His jaw clenched, his fingers white-knuckled on the edge of the door. Finally, with a muttered curse, he stepped aside. His apartment was small bare walls, stacks of vinyl records, cables running like veins across the floor. It smelled faintly of coffee and old wood. He hovered near the kitchen counter, arms crossed, as I set my guitar down carefully by the door. I heard your song, I said, the words trembling out before I could stop them. He flinched like I'd struck him. I told you, you weren't supposed to. I know, but I did. I stepped closer, feeling the heat of his tension radiating across the room. And I can't pretend I didn't. His laugh was sharp, bitter. So what, you came here to pity me? To tell me you're flattered? No, my voice rose, stronger now. I came here because I need you to know it isn't one-sided. That silenced him. His arms dropped, his breath caught. He blinked at me like he couldn't believe what he'd heard. What are you saying? I'm saying. My throat closed around the words. Saying them out loud felt like stepping off a cliff. But I forced them out anyway. I feel it too. Whatever you're afraid of, whatever you're running from, I feel it too. For a moment, the only sound was the faint hum of the refrigerator. Then Alex shook his head, pacing away from me like the distance could save him. Don't say that unless you mean it. His voice cracked, raw and broken. Because I can't, he stopped, hands buried in his hair. I can't survive if this is just another song to you. It's not. I closed the space between us, my chest tight, my hands trembling. Alex, it's not. He froze when I touched his wrist, like my skin burned. His eyes darted to mine, wide and terrified, but behind the fear, there was something else, something alive, something aching to be seen. And then, slowly, he let me hold on. The kiss should have been messy, hesitant, clumsy. But it wasn't. It was fire. It was the storm that had been building between us for weeks, finally breaking open. His hands gripped my shirt, pulling me closer like he couldn't bear another inch of space between us. My fingers tangled in his hair, the taste of rain and desperation on his lips. When we broke apart, we were both gasping, foreheads pressed together. "This is real," I whispered. His eyes fluttered shut, and for the first time, I saw the weight slip from his shoulders. "God help me," he murmured, voice trembling. "I think it is." The days that followed blurred into something I didn't have words for. We still worked in the studio, but everything had shifted. There were stolen glances across the console, hands brushing in the dark, smiles hidden in the corners of our mouths. But it wasn't easy. Alex kept walls around himself, thick and high. Sometimes I'd catch him staring at me with this look, half love, half fear, like he was waiting for me to realize he wasn't worth it. And sometimes, when I thought he was asleep, I'd hear him whispering to himself, like he was trying to talk himself out of believing I was real. I wanted to break those walls. I wanted to tell him he was the reason the music mattered, that without him, none of it meant anything. But the words never came out right. The breaking point came 2 weeks later. We were recording late, just the two of us again. I was halfway through a verse when I noticed Alex wasn't looking at the levels. He was staring at me, not just staring, watching, like he was memorizing me in case I disappeared. I faltered, the chord dying under my fingers. "What?" He shook his head quickly, looking away. "Nothing. Keep going." "No, tell me." I set the guitar down, stepping out of the booth. "Drop it." His tone was sharp, defensive. "Alex." His shoulders tensed. "Why are you so afraid of this?" I demanded. "Of us." He spun around, eyes blazing. "Because people like me don't get happy endings." The words hung in the air, heavy and final. I stared at him, my chest tight. "What does that even mean?" "It means," his voice broke, and suddenly he was laughing, bitter and hollow. "It means I've spent my whole life being the background noise. The guy behind the console. The one nobody sees. And then you show up, and he swallowed hard, shaking his head. "You're the kind of person who burns too bright. And I'm terrified you'll realize I'm not enough." My heart cracked open. "Alex." I stepped closer, my voice shaking. "You're wrong." He looked at me like he didn't believe it, like he couldn't. So I did the only thing I could. I cupped his face in my hands and kissed him again, harder this time. Desperate, like I could pour the truth into him through sheer force. When I pulled back, my forehead rested against his, both of us breathing hard. "You're not background noise," I whispered. "You're the song." And for the first time, Alex let himself believe me. If falling in love was the easy part, keeping it was the war neither of us had prepared for. The first week after Alex let himself fall, everything felt like a dream, soft, golden, fragile. He still flinched sometimes when I reached for him in public, but in the quiet of the studio, his hands lingered against mine. His smile slipped free without permission, and his laughter, his laughter became the rhythm I wanted every song to carry. But dreams don't last forever, not when reality keeps knocking. The label started breathing down my neck. They wanted the record finished, polished, perfect. They wanted radio hits, not raw confessions. And a stubborn, sleepless, desperate to make something real kept fighting them on it. Every argument left me more frayed. Every compromise cut deeper. And Alex, he carried it all with me. But I could see the toll it took. His shoulders curled tighter each day, his voice edged with exhaustion. One night, after the label rep stormed out of the control room, Alex just sat there, rubbing his temples. "You can't keep fighting everyone," he said quietly. "If I don't, I'll lose the record." "No," he murmured, lifting his gaze to mine. "If you do, you'll lose yourself." The silence stretched, heavy between us. And for the first time, I realized he wasn't just talking about the music. We didn't talk about us much. Not outside the four walls of his apartment or the studio when the lights were low. It wasn't shammy, at least not for me. It was survival. The industry chews people up for less than this. A queer artist trying to break out? A sound engineer caught up in the mess? It was easier, safer to stay quiet. But safety has a cost. And one night, that cost finally hit. We were at a bar after a session. A rare night when the whole band wanted to blow off steam. The place was loud, neon lights buzzing, laughter spilling over the clatter of glasses. I'd had just enough whiskey to let myself relax, to let the weight fall off my shoulders. Alex sat at the far end of the booth, close enough that our knees brushed under the table, hidden from everyone else. It was stupid, reckless, but I leaned in. Just a fraction. Just enough for him to know I was there. His breath caught. His hand brushed mine under the table, the faintest ghost of a touch. And then, hey, look who finally brought his shadow along. The drummer slurred, grinning as he pointed at Alex. Man never leaves the studio. Now he's babysitting our golden boy. The others laughed. Alex froze. I wanted to brush it off, to make a joke, to say something anything that would keep the air light. But before I could, the keyboardist leaned in with a smirk. You two spend more time together than married couples. What's the deal, huh? Secret romance. The table erupted in laughter. My stomach dropped. Alex's face drained of color. He pulled his hand back like he'd been burned, muttering something about needing fresh air before he slipped out the door. And just like that, the fragile dream cracked. I found him outside, leaning against the brick wall, a cigarette trembling between his fingers. The rain had started again, misting his hair, soaking through his jacket. Alex, don't. His voice was sharp, but his eyes were wrecked. You can't just, he broke off, dragging a shaky breath. You can't let them see. They were joking. Doesn't matter. His hand shook as he raked it through his hair. Do you have any idea what happens if they think it's true? I swallowed hard. It is true. His eyes snapped to mine, wide and blazing. And that's exactly why it's dangerous. The words hit harder than they should have. Because the truth was, I wanted to stand there in the rain and shout it to the world. I wanted to grab his hand and never let go. But the fear in his voice, the tremor in his hands, I couldn't fight that. Not then. So I just stood there, soaked and silent, as the distance between us grew wider than the rain could measure. The days that followed were harder. In the studio, Alex went back to being the professional, the quiet engineer behind the console, voice clipped, hand steady. No glances, no secret smiles, no trace of the fire we'd shared. At night, I lay awake in his bed while he turned away, his back curved like a wall I couldn't climb. Every time I tried to touch him, he flinched. Not out of disgust, but out of fear. Fear of being seen. Fear of being caught. Fear of losing everything. And slowly, I started to wonder if loving me was just another weight he couldn't carry. Came to a head one night when I couldn't take the silence anymore. We were alone in the studio again, the air thick with unspoken words. Talk to me, I begged. He kept his eyes on the screen, adjusting levels that didn't need adjusting. Alex. Finally, he looked at me, and the anger in his gaze cut deeper than any silence. You don't get it, do you? His voice was low, trembling. You can survive this. You can take the hits, the rumors, the whispers. But me? I'm nobody. I'm replaceable. One rumor, one slip, and I lose everything. The words shattered something inside me. Is that what I am to you? I whispered. A risk? A mistake? His face crumpled. No. He broke off, voice breaking. You're everything. And that's the problem. The silence that followed was worse than shouting. I wanted to reach for him, to beg him not to push me away. But before I could, he turned back to the console, shoulders rigid, walls rebuilt brick by brick. And for the first time since I heard his song, I wondered if we'd ever make it out of this storm. That night, I went home alone. I sat on my apartment floor with my guitar in my lap, fingers raw from playing the same chords over and over. But no melody came, no lyrics, no rhythm, nothing. Just the hollow echo of the one song that had started it all. His song. And I realized something that made my chest ache. He was the reason I could write, the reason I could sing like it mattered. Without him, the music was just noise. And if I didn't fight for him, I'd lose more than just love. I'd lose myself. So I made a choice. The next morning, I showed up at the studio with a new song. Not for the label. Not for the radio. For him. A confession in chords and lyrics. A reminder that he wasn't background noisy was the heartbeat. I recorded it in one take, my voice cracking, my hands trembling, every word a plea. When I finished, the room was silent. Alex stood frozen at the console, his eyes wide, his lips parted. And I waited for him to run, waited for him to push me away again. But instead, slowly, his hands dropped from the controls. And he whispered, so soft I almost missed it. Why do you keep breaking yourself open for me? I swallowed hard. Because you're worth it. His breath hitched. His hands trembled. And for the first time, I saw the wall start to crack. The studio had always been our sanctuary. But that night, it felt like a battlefield. Alex stood by the console, his arms wrapped tightly around himself, his whole body trembling with the weight of what I'd just done, what I'd just sung. My confession hung in the air, woven into every chord, every crack in my voice. I had stripped myself bare in front of him. No stage, no lights, no mask, just me, raw and pleading. And now, the silence between us was deafening. Don't you get it? Alex's voice cracked, sharper than I'd ever heard it. You can't just throw that at me. You can't keep lighting yourself on fire like this. I stepped closer, heart pounding. I'm not burning, Alex. I'm choosing. His laugh was bitter, hollow. Choosing what? Me? Don't you see? I'm the worst decision you could ever make. That's not true. It is. He raked a hand through his blonde hair, pacing like the walls were closing in. You've got a future, career, fans who'll worship you if you just give them what they want. And me. His chest rose and fell too fast, panic choking him. I'm a ghost in the booth. Replaceable. Forgettable. If you tie yourself to me, you'll lose everything. I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed his wrist, forcing him to look at me. Then let me lose it, I whispered. His eyes widened, glistening in the low light. Why would you? Because none of it means anything without you. My voice shook, but the truth surged stronger than my fear. The music, the stages, the songs, they're just noise unless you're there to hear them. You're not replaceable, Alex. You're the song I've been trying to write my whole damn life. His breath stuttered. For a second, I thought he'd collapse. And then, finally, his walls broke. The tears came fast, hot, unrelenting. Alex fell into me like gravity itself had given up, his fists clutching my shirt as though he was afraid I might disappear. I don't know how to do this, he whispered against my chest. I don't know how to be brave like you. You don't have to be, I murmured, holding him tighter. You just have to be here. And for once, he didn't run. The weeks that followed weren't perfect. The label still pushed. The world still whispered. But something inside Alex shifted. He started letting himself exist. At first, it was small, his hand brushing mine in the empty hallway, his voice softening when he said my name, his smile slipping out in the middle of a take. But then it grew. He came to rehearsals. He laughed with the band. He even argued with the label rep when they tried to gut one of my songs, his voice steady, fierce. And when I looked at him, I didn't see fear anymore. I saw him. The man who had once hidden behind silence now stood beside me. Our biggest test came at the Showcasia packed house. Industry bigwigs scattered through the crowd. The kind of night that could make or break everything. I should have been terrified. But when I looked stage left and saw Alex by the soundboard, his eyes steady on me, I felt invincible. Halfway through the set, I broke script. This next song, I told the crowd, voice echoing through the mic, isn't for the label. It isn't for the charts. It's for the person who taught me that music only matters when it's honest. The room fell silent. And then I played it. His song, the one I wrote after that night, after the rain, after his walls cracked and I swore I'd never let him hide again. Every word was for him. And when the last note faded, I looked straight at the booth. Alex was frozen, his hands pressed over his mouth, tears streaming down his cheeks. The crowd roared, but I only heard him. Later, when the stage lights dimmed and the noise of the world faded, I found him waiting for me backstage. "You're insane," he said, shaking his head, his voice rough with tears. "You just outed yourself to an entire industry." I smiled. "No, I just told the truth." He blinked at me, torn between fear and wonder. "And if it ruins everything?" I stepped closer, cupping his face in my hands. "Then at least I ruined it with you." For the first time, Alex didn't argue. He just kissed me deep, fierce, unashamed. And in that moment, I knew we'd survive. Months later, the record dropped. The label grumbled, critics argued, but the fans, the people who mattered, listened. They heard the truth in the music. They heard us. And Alex? He still spends most of his time behind the console, headphones clamped over one ear, adjusting levels like a surgeon. But sometimes, when the room is quiet and it's just us, he'll lean back, smirk faintly, and say, "You know you're impossible to work with, right?" And I'll laugh because maybe he's right. But then I'll play him something new, and he'll listen the way only he can, like I'm the only sound in the universe. And that's when I know the world can take the stage, the lights, the noise. As long as I have Alex, I'll always have the song. The rain still comes and goes in Brooklyn, washing the streets clean, blurring the neon. But now, when it falls, I don't think of silence or fear. I think of the boy who once tried to disappear into the shadows. The boy who wrote a love song he never meant for me to hear. The boy who became my everything. And when the storm passes, what's left isn't broken. It's music. It's love. It's us. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.